side.
We can see him.
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to tonight's town council meeting. And as we always do, as we do the pledge. So for this few that's here, excuse me, for those that are in attendance, if we could rise for the pledge. Greg, if you could lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we could have a moment of silence for our men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, including all of our medical heroes, that being our doctors, nurses, CNAs, ambulance, all those that are going to be the front lines of this pandemic. Thank you. And as we're beginning this is a new thing that we're doing here. That's per the governor's order, which is allowing for us to do remote meetings, all in the expectation of trying to limit social distancing and keep our residents as well as our town councilmen and our staff safe. So please bear with us. This is the first time we're trying to do this. So if there are some issues, we're going to be working on this and getting better and better at it. With that being said, Grant is monitoring this for us. If there's anybody in the public that would like to say something or type something in, please do so, and we'll give you a moment to do that.
Who's on, is Walter?
And while we're waiting, if we could do a roll call of our town council for Stephanie.
Okay. Kate Francis? Who's that?
Okay, next.
We have somebody next.
My name Montrose.
All right.
Next.
Mary Jane Montrose.
Okay.
Next.
Michael Gold.
Okay.
Next.
Dave Long.
I heard Dave, and then Doug.
Okay, yes. And Dave Thomas Benito.
Thomas Benito. Chris, how about Walter?
Is Walter on the line yet?
No.
Okay. So you have everybody but Walter?
Yeah.
Okay. Grant, do we have anyone from the public?
No, sir.
Okay. So we're going to move forward to the mayor's remarks. First, as I said during our moment of silence, I'd like to thank our first responders, including our police, ambulance, fire, CERT, our doctors, our nurses, our CNAs, for all their efforts as we continue to go through this pandemic. This is something, according to our officials and our medical, this is something that's going to last for quite some time. So I'd like to thank everybody that's involved as we go through unprecedented times. I'd also like to thank everyone in our community that's donated or volunteered during this crisis. Thank you to those that have checked in on their neighbors, especially our seniors. Thank you to those that have supported our business community by purchasing takeout dinners, gift cards, paying it forward. It is in this spirit that will get us through these unprecedented times. And it just shows how wonderful our community is. As I said before, we have a very special community. So thank you to all. I'd like to update the council on a couple of items as far as our coronavirus procedures. For the council's education, all of our town buildings except the Milford Police Department have been closed to just appointment only. People need to call the departments and the departments schedule the appointments. This is all in considering the safety of our town employees as well as the safety of our residents. This has been very successful. We started this last week and we feel that it's been very successful so far. I can't thank our town's employees for all the efforts that they have done and continue to do during this pandemic. It's through their courage and their commitment to our residents and taxpayers that we continue to move town government in the capacity that we can. On March 17th, I declared a town emergency. This will allow the town more flexibility moving forward. This will also allow us possible opportunities for reimbursement of funds and aligns us with the state. Also, I'd like to notify the town council, per Charter Section 808, Emergency Appropriations, for the purpose of a meeting, a public safety emergency threatening the lives, health, or property of citizens, emergency appropriations, the total amount which shall not exceed 1/8 of 1 mil on the last completed taxable grand list of the town, may be obligated by the mayor. Any amount above this shall require a majority vote of the council and an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the Board of Finance. I am notifying the council that I have enacted the statute and directed the finance director to create a line in the mayor's office budget to put in the funds. Greg, what would that come to approximately?
Approximately $354,000.
So that'd be $354,000. The reason for that is in case we have emergency needs for the townspeople and for funds that would be expedited prior to a council or board of finance meeting. One of those that we'll be talking in the next meeting in executive session has to do with New Milford ambulance. Also, I'd like to let the council know that the governor's put in place different executive orders. One of the last ones was businesses that are considered essential and those that are asked to close. I was on another conference call with the governor and with his team before we had our council meeting, and they're going to make additional updates to his executive orders. You can go on the state of Connecticut's website, click on the top, coronavirus, and then you can click to the links that are provided that shows all of the essential businesses so far. Also, you can go to my Facebook page, and I have it listed there as well. They continue to refine this, as this is something that changes hourly. We've kept the town informed as we've gone through this pandemic with different ways. First, through our social sites, all of our social media sites that the town has, including my Facebook page. Also through YouTube meetings that we've done and got feedback from our constituents, and also reverse 911. We're going to continue to do that to update our citizens, residents, and business owners so that they can be abreast of these things as they are changing hourly. As what has been brought back in the papers and the media is the executive order by the governor concerning municipal budgets and referendum. Today I was in contact with our voter registrars and our town attorney, and we're looking at ways where we can have the opportunity for the townspeople to cast their vote. I'll have more of that once we have more information. I've asked our voter registrars to come up with a plan, and I'll be addressing the citizenry and you, the council, early next week on that. With that being said, any questions from the council so far?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
So Katie, if you could do the consent agenda?
Okay, item number 4A and 4B, move to accept the consent agenda items as noted.
Second, this is Chris.
Second made by Chris Cosgrove.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay, and one abstention. Stephanie, can you notice? Can you put that down? We have just one abstention.
Yep.
And the rest is voted in favor. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, item number 5. Discussion and possible action on the creation of a town meeting concerning the possible purchase of 25 Church Street.
And thank you, Katie. I'd like to ask the council's favor of letting us put this off until the next meeting, as I'd like to clarify with our town attorney, Randy DeBella, because this is any possible purchase has to deal with a town meeting, how we would handle that when it comes to the sale of a property. And as of right now, I don't have the definitive answer for you, so I'd like to ask that this agenda item be pushed off until the next meeting.
Very great idea.
Fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Okay. Okay, 5B, move to allow the mayor to form a resolution to refinance $26 million of general obligation bonds.
Second.
Who was that did the second? Doug Skelly? Okay.
And for the edification of the council and the public, what we're trying to do is, as we've seen the bonds rise in some extent, they're kind of frozen right now and the market has fallen, there can be a tremendous opportunity to refinance depending on the market. So the goal is we talk to our financial advisor and our bond counsel, Greg and myself, we all met, and the thought process is get the resolution from the council and then go to the different credit agencies, whether it be Standard & Poor's or Moody's, get our new assessment, and then if possible refinance the money if it is something that makes sense. If we could do it right now, the opportunity would be we could save hundreds of thousands of dollars. So,
I agree 100% with this. Tom Esposito here. This is the right time to do this. Be prepared.
What type of interest rates are we talking about here?
so right now, Greg, could you answer?
Oh, let's see if I have, I just happen to have the Treasury yield curve rates as of March 20th. 20-year Treasury bill was 1.35%, and we always beat the Treasury bill rate. So we're hovering now around 1 to 1.1%. That's unheard of in my experience.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
I agree, these are historical rates that we may never see again, and we need to take this opportunity to refinance and save hundreds of thousands.
Can I interrupt?
I fully agree.
Did we have somebody who wanted to interject?
Pete?
Yes.
It's the bear, I'm here.
Hey, Walter, how are you?
Hi, Walter. Easy to get through, trust me. Have the minutes been moved?
Yes, sir.
The pledge of allegiance was done?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, should I vote yes for everything?
Now, we're sitting down after the pledge, so sit down.
Okay, I'm listening, keep going.
Okay. So, Walter, right now we're on item 5. Item B, the discussion of the possible resolution to refinance. So as we were talking about before, right now is pretty much a golden opportunity to refinance the town's debt. And what this resolution does is give us the opportunity to get our house in order, so to speak, get the new Standard & Poor's or Moody's, get their new their new rates on this. So then it gives us the flexibility to be able to do this as quickly as we possibly can once the credit markets pretty much are at ease, so to speak.
Right. Okay.
Totally agree.
Okay, so we had a motion, it was seconded by Doug Skelly.
Any other comments?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone? Okay, we have unanimous.
Yep.
Any abstentions? Sorry. Okay, no abstentions. Can you please note, Stephanie, a unanimous decision? Next.
Item 5C, move to make a donation of $5,000 from an account to be determined by the Director of Finance to Camilla's Cupboard. That's an amendment. That was a sort of a typo there, so it's 5,000, not 50.
Second.
So that's the motion. Do we have a second?
Yes.
So it's not $5,000?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And
So just one.
Second by Dave Lawson.
Yeah.
And I'd like to read before the council begins their discussion. I'd like to read an email I got this morning from Angie, because I asked her to kind of write a synopsis for it. She goes, I'm writing to request emergency funding on behalf of Camilla's Cupboard. Camilla's Cupboard volunteers have been planning and stocking for the past several weeks. once we felt school closures were imminent. 2 weeks ago, we were called into action. We started providing emergency food to families on Friday, March 13th. On that evening, we served 160 families, approximately 50 more than the normal weekly average. This past Friday, we served 284 families. This coming Friday, I believe we will double our normal distribution. While we are thrilled to be able to assist parents and hopefully alleviate some of their fear around feeding their children, this has come at a great cost. We are currently spending approximately $3,500 each week to provide a week's worth of breakfasts, lunches, and snacks for each child. At $1.14 per meal, our meal costs are well below the average of $3.50. However, these costs do add up, and we're requesting assistance with this unbudgeted need. The townsfolk of New Milford have been extremely generous, donating a week's worth of cost over the past few weeks. However, the donations have slowed to a trickle, and we are facing unprecedented needs and costs. Today, the New Milford Public Schools began serving a grab-and-go lunch with breakfast for the next day. They are doing this 3 times each week. I anticipate this will help some families, but not all. Some families cannot get out during the day to pick up, while others are concerned about fuel costs with daily trips. Carmela's Covered will continue to face unprecedented demand for our services. Thank you, Angie Chastain. I did speak with Angie before the meeting today, and I also asked her if the council does decide to approve this $5,000, that she provide us with some additional financials so that the council can see where the funding is going and what the needs are.
No-brainer. An absolute no-brainer, unprecedented time to help out the children.
Yeah, and Pete, in your discussions, if it's $3,500 a week, we may, I might suggest that you use your emergency powers with the $354,000, because I would consider keeping our residents priority.
Yeah, and what we'll do is come back. I told Angie we'll come back in 2 weeks. She'll have the financials and an account so we can kind of see what the run rate is on that.
Yeah, as it goes up and down, you know. So anyway.
Okay.
This is Chris.
So we have a motion, Dave, you seconded it, right? For
Do we have that? Yep.
This is Chris. I just want to thank Angie and her group for, we're really blessed that they're there. They have this organization in place and they can meet the need at the moment's notice when the school wasn't able to do it. So, yeah, I fully agree with this funding. Absolutely. Let's vote.
Do you have any other discussion?
Works for me.
Okay. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Well, sorry. I was trying to interject and I realized I was on mute. I was like, why did they ever listen to me? You know, you said before Milford is the greatest town, and somehow we need to get word out that Angie's, Camilla's Covered is looking for funds and seeing if we could get some people from the town to donate so we don't have to always hit the taxpayers.
So we've been really pushing that out, and in her letter she was saying how, in fact, she got a lot of donations, but because of a lot of people now themselves having their hours cut or becoming unemployed, that her donations are drying up.
Okay. Yeah, and absolutely. That's happening everywhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of nonprofits are going to unfortunately be squeezed.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
Any other discussion on the motion? All those in
one
favor?
question.
Yep.
Well,
Okay.
there's the money. What happens to the money that was there to feed all these kids?
Can't understand you, Tom, say it again.
What happens to the money that was allocated to feed these kids while they were at school? Where is that being accumulated in account someplace?
So
not being expended?
So I asked Angie, who is the Board of Ed chair, if she could, there would be questions coming, if she could provide us those answers, and she said she'd be working on that for us. As soon as I get that, I will then give that out to the council.
Thank you.
Any other discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Can you please note, Stephanie, it was unanimous?
Okay. Item number 6, move to take the transfer of funds in excess of $25,000 from contingency, the account number 109-80-000-58900 to tax rebates and refunds, which is account number 104-13700-59500. Who was that, Mike Nail?
No,
Walter Mayor.
Oh, Walter. All right, Walter.
Hey, that's okay, you don't recognize my voice?
I'm sorry, I can hear you from home.
And we have Brian, the assessor here, so he can kind of fill you guys in on the need for the transfer of funds. Yeah, Brian?
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Can you guys hear Brian?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, as you know, we have an account in the budget to account for and pay tax refunds that are issued throughout the year. Most of these are motor vehicle related. As I explained in my budget presentation last month, a lot of the motor vehicle rebates and refunds go to leasing companies, and leasing companies typically are very good at paying in July when the bills are issued, and then they worry about submitting documentation for refunds later. So as the year got off, we got off to a very quick start with refunds. As of November, our refunds were running almost $12,000 ahead of the previous year.
Turn off the video.
And most of the difference, at $12,000, the leasing companies accounted for $11,500 of that $12,000 difference. So that's really where I think most of the difference is this year. So as the motion states, we're looking to transfer $25,000 into the assessors and tax collectors tax rebate and refunds account, and that should be more than enough to cover us for the remainder of the year.
Does anybody have any questions for Brian?
No. This is Chris. Just one question for Brian. Is this a normal pattern that we've seen in years past?
I think the leasing companies are getting better at providing us documentation and for adjustments to the motor vehicle assessments. So I think it seems to be a little bit higher than in the past from my perspective and looking back over the previous years. So this year just seemed like there were more vehicles involved, and it's just could just be an aberration. It could be the economy picking up and more people obviously turning in a lease vehicle and then getting another one.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Brian?
Just real quick, Doug Kelly. Brian, on the rebound, are you guys, I know that the mayor sent something out, you're just going to be doing some outside
Yes.
measurements and not going into people's houses.
Right.
How are you faring with that? And is there an easy way to just go by building permits and stuff like that, or do you have to go to everyone?
Okay, so this, by state statute, every 10 years we're required to visit every property and attempt to do an interior inspection, and then of course measure the exterior. So getting back to the question, we're getting good reception from people. We've changed our strategy in the sense that we are knocking on the door, or the field people for vision appraisal technology, knocking on the door, stepping back, giving more than 6 feet, and we're verifying information with the property owner at the door, and then just requesting to do an exterior measure. So we're just staying outside the homes and away from the taxpayers. And so far, it seems to be working out just fine.
And how far along are you with that?
We're probably about 70% through the town. So we're anticipating completion of the data collection. Obviously, this pandemic episode is going to slow things down a little, but we're still shooting to complete the data collection by the first part of June.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Brian?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Stephanie, can you please note unanimous? Next.
Item 7, update from Greg Ospel, Finance Director.
Greg?
Good evening, all. I hope everyone is doing very well.
Thank you, Brian.
The coronavirus has impacted the town's operations, and here's the latest update on what the finance department has as a contingency plan. My staff and I have obtained laptops to take home in the event of a quarantine. This will enable us to work from home and access our lead bank, as well as access our financial system to conduct necessary operations without interruptions. We have required all employees who do not currently have direct deposit to do so. I want to assure you that the town of New Milford has a strong fund balance and will be able to operate undeterred. Our liquidity and cash positions are very strong, and the town can meet its obligations and upcoming debt maturities without issue. I have pre-scheduled our final debt payments for the year that are due in April, so in the event of any extenuating circumstances, our debt obligations will be satisfied. As the mayor mentioned, I've set up an emergency coronavirus line item within the mayor's budget to address any extraordinary expenditures that may arise. Emergency purchases will avoid requiring a purchase order, but would be subject to the mayor's and my approval. On the revenues and expenditures as of February, revenues are at 90.1% of budget, and expenditures are at 63.5% of budget without encumbrances. On a straight line basis, we would expect to be at 66.7%. So we're over budget in revenues and under budget in expenditures. Tax collections are at 99.1% of budget overall, with current taxes at 99.5%. That accounts for 80% of our revenue. Certain revenues generated by school attendance, namely Sherman tuition and other tuition and youth agency before and after school revenue, may be detrimentally affected by the coronavirus emergency. Parks and Rec revenue may fall short as well, depending on the depth and breadth of this pandemic. There are certain management tools that are available, such as layoffs, furloughs, and spending freezes that are at our disposal to mitigate any negative effect of the coronavirus. In summary, on a cash basis, revenues are at $92,873,625.10, and expenditures are $64,439,395.14, leaving the town with a positive cash flow of $28,434,229.96.
Any questions for Greg? Just go ahead, Chris.
From Chris. Greg, the emergency fund that we're doing here with the mayor, any special challenges in that for you? Tracking it, recording it, that sort of thing, or is it?
No. All those expenditures will be, and I actually assigned a project code to that, so that will be easily trackable. And what I did, Chris, is I requested from our lead bank a checkbook that would not require our use of the accounts payable system, and this will expedite payments.
Does anybody have any other questions for Greg?
Yeah, this is Dave Lawson. Again, with this emergency fund, is there a cap on how much the mayor can spend at one time?
Right? What he has at his discretion by charter, 1/8 of a mil, which equates to $354,000. What do you mean, at one instance? I don't think there's any restriction on that. Not within the $354,000.
No. Okay, no restriction.
Any other discussion?
Great job, Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Great job.
And lastly, for the council, as Greg had mentioned, looking at the revenues, we are obviously concerned about youth agency, park and rec, and the latching program, obviously because of the coronavirus. I've spoken to the department heads, and by the next meeting, we're going to come up with kind of our thought processes moving forward so that you, the council, can be aware.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Next.
Item 8, move to authorize the mayor to apply for the planning grant for Thriving Connecticut Communities Affordable Housing Plan Technical Assistance Program.
So,
Second by Tom.
okay.
No, the bear.
I'm sorry, Walter.
Peggy.
Walter, I'm going to walk up the street and you can say it right to me. Thank you.
And we have our grant writer Tammy Reardon here this evening, and she's going to talk a little bit about the application and the grant. Tammy?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. I hope you are all well. Thank you for joining us tonight and giving me a few minutes to talk to you about the planning grant for Thriving Connecticut Communities. This grant provides each community in the state of Connecticut the ability to apply for up to $15,000 to assist with planning and developing an affordable housing plan. So upon notice of this availability, I spoke with our land use supervisor and zoning enforcement officer, town planner Laura Regan. We took a look at the application, which is extremely simple, and after she reached out to several consultants, it was determined that we would apply for the full $15,000, and we would use those funds to hire a consultant and provide some technical resources for developing a New Milford affordable housing plan. Laura is very hopeful that between now and the time that the funds become available, that the Department of Housing will provide more guidance as to what a municipal affordable housing plan should actually look like, because that is something in the planning world that is non-existent. There's not a lot of direction out there. So it is a cash upfront grant for $15,000. Again, we would use that $15,000 to hire a consultant. We would have through June 30th of 2021 to spend those funds.
Any discussion?
Andy, this is Chris. Any town match involved with this grant?
Thank you, Councilman. There is no required town match. However, I do have a required resolution that I provided in my request to the mayor. If you would be so kind to offer that resolution, I would appreciate it.
Yes, it's, want me to read it, Tammy?
Yes, please.
Okay. So with the above motion, resolve that Pete Bass, as mayor of the town of New Milford, is authorized and directed to execute the Affordable Housing Plan Technical Assistance Program grant application and submit it to the Connecticut Department of Housing for consideration. Be it further resolved that upon receipt of the grant approval, Mayor Pete Bass may administer the grant, deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of New Milford, and perform all acts and things which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such document.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Stephanie, please note the unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 8B, motion to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement between the town of New Milford and Beta Group, BETA Group, for consulting engineering services for the design of Route 7 pedestrian improvement project, state project number 95-256, federal project number PED, Peter, Evan, David, Sam 219.
Second.
Walter.
And Tammy?
Thank you. Tammy Reardon once again, thank you for your attention to this one. It is a little more descriptive as this grant application actually goes back several years. It is a federal fund. It is the Surface Transportation Block Grant that was applied for in December of 2016 for transportation alternatives. That application was submitted for sidewalks at various locations along Route 7. This may sound familiar to you because approximately 1 year ago, we brought this to your attention in seeking some initial funding to move the project along so that it wasn't rescinded by the federal government. So I'll give you a brief overview of the timeline because we have some new council members present. So that application was submitted for $1 million in December of 2016. In May of 2018, so almost 1.5 years later, the town of New Milford received a notice of advancement and funding from DOT with an estimated project cost of over $1.8 million. After review of that, the mayor requested and was approved by DOT to take a portion of those sidewalks along Route 7 and adjust them to incorporate sidewalks on Ascatuck Avenue. So if you're familiar with that, that is from Canterbury School down to the Green. There's many pedestrians that use that currently. That was approved by DOT. So in November of 2018, the town of New Milford issued an RFQ for engineering and design services. This process was largely guided and very closely followed by the state's consultant, which is VHB. They are responsible for making sure that the town adheres to a very onerous process of hiring a consultant engineer. So that RFQ was received back the end of December, end of November, excuse me. In December and January, a consultant selection team that was put together by Mayor Bass reviewed 7 applicants. We discussed with them their presentations. We had to rank them, rate them, score them based on a standard given to us for the project. And in February of 2019, the consultant that we selected as a group, Beta, was approved by DOT. So this is where you may find this information familiar because in March, April, and May of 2019, we had some discussions at the council level as well as at the Board of Finance level. One of the primary concerns at the time from the council was the location of these sidewalks. You might recall that many of the sidewalks are in the southern portion of Route 7, closer to the high school, down across from the golf course, as well as Candlewood condominium, south of the high school. There was some discussion at that time about the location, as we have had many incidents closer to town, approximately from Veterans Bridge south to the Pettibone Community Center area. So we've continued to work through this, and I know the mayor's had some distractions with some other things going on that are just as important. We've worked through and I've maintained contact with VHB during this time. But what has happened is we were at risk of losing the funding. We were put on an inactive list, and March, this month as a matter of fact, the federal government would have rescinded the funding that we were approved to receive. Didn't want to see that happen, so through diligent effort with VHB, we've moved the project forward, and in January of 2020, the scope of work that was developed for the current locations was approved by DOT as well as the town of New Milford. Those are the locations that were originally presented to you. This is important to note because we do have some opportunities coming up. In February of 2020, the man hours. It is a giant spreadsheet of every task that Beta will have to perform, as well as their hourly rates, their seniority levels, and positions. Those man hours were negotiated by the mayor, as well as Beta and VHB facilitating that. They were agreed by all. After that, we've received the project authorization letter from State DOT. You all should have the project authorization letter. I did provide that to be included in your packets. So you will note that the project authorization letter does have a fairly significant number for the total cost of the design engineering services. However, only a portion of that is the responsibility of the town of New Milford. So for anybody not having that document in front of you, the project authorization letter is the state of Connecticut's commitment to fund $460,400 towards the total cost of $575,500 for design and engineering service documents. What that does is that provides the municipal share for design engineering services of $115,100. That project authorization letter is the commitment by the state. So what I'm asking for you this evening is authorization for the mayor to execute the actual agreement between Beta and the town of New Milford via the resolution I've provided. Please do not be frightened by this. I've talked to the mayor several times about how to proceed and what the risks are. There is no risk to the town of New Milford for authorizing the mayor to sign this agreement. Randy DeBella has reviewed the agreement, and although he's not thrilled with every piece of it, it is a standard federal and state agreement that we don't really have much wiggle room in. One of the things that I'd like you to make note of is signing this agreement does not financially obligate the town of New Milford to anything more than what is spent on the project. That is very important to note. After the agreement is signed, if you so grant the mayor to do so, the mayor will be controlling the cost of this project through a series of documents called a notice to proceed. The notice to proceed that he will issue to Beta will control the work and the amount of funding that the town is responsible for in increments. After reviewing with the mayor, and because this project is such a long discussed project, Route 7 sidewalks, if you consider that these discussions have been going for 20 or 25 years within the community, I made a recommendation to the mayor that if you authorize him to sign this agreement, his initial notice to proceed to Beta will be simply for them to facilitate a public information meeting, which the mayor negotiated into the man-hour agreement. That public information meeting facilitation by Beta at a time when we can gather once again, of course. The maximum cost for that is $5,800. The town's share is 20% of that. So for about $1,200, the mayor and yourselves will be able to take the temperature, if you will, of the public regarding the project as a whole, as well as the locations that were previously approved. And then you can decide how you would like to move forward if the project should be moving forward and what the next steps will be.
Tammy?
Yes.
I have a question. We did discuss this several times, and I understand that there's a time frame allotment for us, but when you talk about having them come in and do a public meeting and take the temperature, my big question is who decides where the sidewalk will be put? Because I think after our last conversations about it being up in the area of slightly south of the high school, there was a very strong feeling by a lot of people, council people, and in the public, that we have areas where there's a lot more foot traffic closer towards
That's a very good question, a very valid question, because I do recall those discussions at the council regarding the location of the sidewalks. So we did discuss during the man-hour negotiations the idea that Beta would come in and host and facilitate a public information meeting for the public to hear the current design layout and locations. However,
Which is
we
up
did
by the high school, I've seen it. That's
very
what we have,
right. As I said, the further south along Route 7, those locations were not determined by me.
No, I understand, but
right.
I mean, just
So,
to save everybody a lot of time and effort here, and even to go farther and say we're gonna do this and have a public meeting and get everybody talking about it, if they're going to put up the showing it in a place which we already spent hours discussing that was not a place where there was a lot of traffic, and why are we spending anybody's money, whether it's ours or the state's, to put a sidewalk in a place where no one walks? And it isn't that they're not walking because there isn't a sidewalk. Part of that goes over in front of Wetmore's, and there's wetlands and culverts and everything else. So I guess is contingency to us, if we want to do this and take this money, means that we then have to go along. We're right back to where we started. We have to go along with what they want to show where that sidewalk would go.
right. I understand
So we're
that,
right back
Katie.
where we started last year, a year and a half, two, whatever time it was, and we all started in that conversation. So if that's where we're at, I don't know why we bothered.
No. Let me provide you with some more information that may clarify. So the purpose of the public information meeting to be facilitated by Beta is for the public to have the opportunity to comment and review the locations that had been selected. Based on that public response, the mayor, as well as you, our public works director, and Beta, who will be prepared for the public to respond with a preference for other locations.
But the
We
public's
will be
not
able
going to
to
see any other options, Tammy. I know how public meetings go. They'll come with the drawings and the easels and they'll talk about it. And they've not done a foot traffic study. I mean, we had all these discussions, and here we are again having the same discussion. If they're not willing to show any drawings or any sort of renderings of other places where our council members have said could use a good sidewalk for public health and safety, then, in other words, they're saying, if you want this money, you got to do it our way, right?
No.
They're saying they want to take the temperature of the public, so if the public wants the sidewalks by Big Y, then if that's where they want them, then they'll readjust the program to where
Right,
we want the
but what
sidewalks.
if we have to show the public, can we put up our easel and say,
Oh,
you know, here's a suggestion. You know, public hearings, when there isn't anything else to look at, isn't really a fair deal for anybody.
The problem would be getting someone to do that pro bono, because they
Do what?
do designs for different parts of the sidewalks. Because they're going to charge you for that.
Right.
So in other
So
words, what I just said is true then, Mayor, that in order for us to do this, they want to give us money to put a sidewalk in to help our town, but it has to be where they want it.
No.
who is they?
Data, I guess.
No.
Whoever brought this to us in the first place.
No.
Somebody else decided that was a good place to put a sidewalk.
Yeah, that was the former Public Works Director, Mike Zarba, and they were looking at those areas because they felt that there would be areas, if it was done, it would be done on town property, so moving forward, the town wouldn't have to expend the funds. And then we heard from the council that maybe we should be really looking at the Big Y area, look at the area south, because that's where we're getting a lot of foot traffic. And they're willing to do that by hearing from the public, because we had told them that the public was wanting to know more about, was interested in sidewalks in that area. But they're not going to plan and prepare docks unless they know that to be true, because it's going to cost
well,
money.
the only way we're going to know it to be true is to go out and try to drum up business. The other thing that came up in the meetings ages ago was the cost to maintain a sidewalk, regardless of where it is, but specifically, if it's not in front of businesses, such as along the more traveled route, if it's out in the middle, then that means the town is going to bear the burden to make sure that it's shoveled and de-iced in the winter.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
But
here's
Katie, you're missing the other point though, is if it's part of a town, if it's part of a private business, then when that private business does any kind of change, they have to put their sidewalks in, whereas the area that Mike Zarver put up, well, one they wanted to do around schools, so that was to push that.
No, wait, hold on. I'm sorry, you can, I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt you, go ahead.
Yeah, you did interrupt me, so let me finish it. The part about not being, on town property, is someone else may pay for it, whereas it's not town property. Eventually, those areas, we will have to pay 100%. Now, what you're saying is we should do it in front of a business, so now instead of the business paying for the sidewalk, the savings we're gonna get from the town paying for 3/4 of it is gonna go away. So that was one of the reasons Mike Zarver had done that. And there are people walking on sidewalks in the other areas that we're talking about. Now, I'm not sure about the Canterbury School one, but south of Wetmore's area does have people walking there. I see them all every day. I don't care where it goes. I just think that we keep going around and around in circles on this. I'd like to just figure out where it's going to go so we go forward on it.
Okay, and I'll go back to it one more time and ask this question that was asked before, and I think you or someone else asked it, Chris. So we have a public hearing, everybody looks at the drawing that's there, and the few people that might come will say, oh, that's wonderful. So it goes ahead and we put the sidewalk in out there where, there's no one to really walk on it, we have to maintain it. What's our cost? What's our share of that, Sandy? What's the minimum amount that it will cost the town for this lovely gift?
Yeah.
So, what I have is a preliminary estimate from the state of Connecticut. When we received the award notice of advancement, that estimate for construction was $1,887,205. The town's portion of that is 20%. So approximately $370,000, and that's for the construction portion.
That's the maximum amount we would have to pay, $370,000.
Actually, you know what? Let me give me one moment. I want to double check something in my files here because I may have misspoke. I do want to say though, however, so when I was giving you the timeline, in July of 2018, the mayor made an appeal to Connecticut DOT to relocate a portion of those sidewalks. The preliminary information that was provided to DOT provided a portion to be moved off of Route 7, equivalent to the estimated cost for the portion to be constructed along Aspetuck Avenue, from the Canterbury School where their sidewalks end, south to where the town green is, or perhaps where some of the sidewalks are a bit debilitated there. So with a public information being held at the cost of approximately $1,200 maximum to the town of New Milford, if the public, and this is a public information meeting, so this would be a larger presentation as far as what I'm envisioning, not just a public hearing by the council. It would really be an appeal, and we would need to facilitate that with notices to the residents and businesses along the current areas where the sidewalks are proposed. So I think there would be a lot more participation from the public in this meeting. At least I would hope so. But based on that response, the mayor would have the support to, if needed, issue an appeal to state DOT to revise the locations of the sidewalks proposed. At that point, when DOT provides an approval, we would then be able to take it to a design consultant to determine what linear footage we're able to get out of the dollars available for moving those sidewalks. So hopefully that provides some clarification that we're actually not having the same discussion over and over again. We've made a lot of progress, but without authorizing the mayor to sign and execute this agreement, the feds will come and take this money. We will not have the opportunity.
So back to what Mike had to say. Mike, I don't want to put it on some town property, what you're saying about if the business is there, I want to put it where people walk. If it's on town property, we have to pay to maintain it, and that's a high cost, and you know that. But my point is, nobody's yet to give us what it's going to cost us. We are in the middle of not having enough money when we went to budget. Now we're in the middle And the fact that the mayor can go back, that was brought up before, Tammy, thank you for telling us again, that he could go ahead and petition for having it somewhere else. But Mike Garva said, oh, well, we'll get the most footage here for our money. But maybe that's not the most important thing. What about the people that are walking where there's a lot of traffic? Maybe public health and safety is important to some people, like those that are walking, going to the bus stops. I just think that to have to look at this only through the lens that someone else decided, when we know where the traffic patterns are, they've never done a foot study of anywhere where they said they wanted to put it. I know some kids walk along to go to the gas station and walk up the street, but really, a $1.8 million project that's a lot of money for a few kids to walk on it when we have other places that could use it. And we have to maintain it.
Okay, so I certainly support the motion. I don't want to keep this money going down the tubes. And I'm confident that we can work out some sort of compromise. I'm hearing what everybody's saying. I do believe that the high school in that area is in great need of sidewalks. And I also agree that for the town towards student life, we're in great need of sidewalks. But to let it slip through our fingers, I think is a mistake.
This is Chris. It seems to me all that's been done so far is we've just compiled anecdotal data. Everybody has their own ideas of where the traffic is and where it isn't, and where the needs are, where it isn't. And I do agree with Katie, but just putting sidewalks on town property then obligates maintenance, which is very costly. And
Uh-oh.
What did Chris do?
I don't hear anybody else either.
Chris?
Damn sidewalks.
Go ahead and pause this live stream.
You want to let everybody know you're pausing for a moment?
I don't think you can hear us, can they?
I don't know if they
It
can hear
appears
us.
to be pretty live, so.
If we could let everybody know we're trying to get a hold back of our council members via the conference call. I apologize for the thing.
Can you hear us again?
Technical difficulties.
Can you hang up and try calling again?
And they each would have to reconnect, wouldn't they?
I don't know.
If the call dropped, unless you can tap back into it.
Everybody's saying the video's frozen.
It's frozen
How
right
many people are on the line now?
Oh,
Who's on the line?
Tom Esposito.
Okay. Who else?
I guess that's it.
Is it just you, Tom?
Yeah, I think you're breaking up too.
somebody else come in?
Do we have anybody else? Hello? Let me see if I can get other people on the line. Did someone join?
Doug's back.
Okay,
I had to call back again.
thank you. Who joined? Hello, who joined?
Mike Neal's back.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Who joined?
Definitely get Walter back.
I heard someone beep.
Yeah, someone else joined?
Hi, it's Mary Jane.
Hi, Mary Jane, sorry.
That's okay. Is everybody back on or not yet?
Chris is here, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you now, Chris.
Okay, I could hear you guys before, but you couldn't hear me, okay.
Yeah, Pete is playing. Can you hear me?
Who?
Pete, it's Michael. Can you hear me?
Yep, now I can hear you, Mike.
Yep.
Mike, there's two mics, so you gotta choose your last name.
Oh,
Goldie.
I think we're waiting on Katie.
Katie and Walter, I believe.
So did it drop off when I was speaking?
Yes.
All your fault.
Yeah, that was
Chris.
planned.
All your fault, Chris.
So we're waiting for Katie to come back on. Can you talk about what you were talking about?
Sorry, me, Chris?
Wait, I think that's key.
Who came on? Did someone come on? Okay.
There we go. Let's do the one beat.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
hello? Hello?
It's Katie.
Chris?
Okay.
Is Dave
Hello?
Wilson? Is Dave Wilson?
Katie, Chris.
Walter back?
No, I think we lost him. Is Dave Wilson on?
Peter, I can hear you.
There we go.
All right, Tom back.
So we got everybody.
All right.
All right. So go ahead, Chris.
All right, Chris, finish.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where I left off at, but it just seems like all we have is anecdotal information in our possession today on where sidewalks should be. We don't have any foot traffic studies, and I do agree with Katie that the added maintenance cost to the town of putting sidewalks on town property is large, and moving forward with grant money, and it is, taxpayer money in some form or fashion, whether it's state or here, and then using that to put sidewalks on town property that's going to cost us more money, to me it seems I'd rather do nothing than to do that, than obligate the town for higher costs without any real data on where it should be. It looks to me like this consultant is just going to gather more anecdotal data.
This is Mary Jane. I'd like to say something. You can't put a price tag on somebody's life. We've already lost numerous people on Route 7 trying to cross the road, getting hit by a bus, whatever. And I don't really care if the town has additional expenses to maintain it. This is about our residents of our town, our public, and we deserve, and they deserve, to have safety in walking along our highways, walking along Route 7. And, this is a piece of the puzzle. So why not take it and run with it and do it and then keep working and get that whole piece, get that whole corridor sidewalked eventually. So let's do it. You can put it before the public if there's a big uproar and people want it down by big wide, move it, but let's do something, because this is, every day we're at risk of somebody else getting run over down there. And I just, I think the town owes the public the safety of being able to walk along Route 7 and shop and, get to businesses down there. That's my thought.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Mary Jane.
That was Mr. Lawson. Stephanie?
I'm getting the voices.
Anybody else have any other comments?
I just want to know, Pete,
What the next step is, I mean, to go forward with this, because I do agree with Mary Jane that next time someone gets hurt or killed on Route 7 and people find out that there's money available that we just, that, 3/4 is going to be paid by the state and we didn't do anything about it, it's not going to look good. So I'd like to just at least move forward, where it goes is something that can be decided, but I don't want to see this money lost.
The next step,
I agree with you.
the next step moving forward would be your authorization that would then allow for a town meeting to get the input of the public as to where they want the sidewalks. That would be your next step.
I think that's perfect. Can I ask you, Mayor, you mean to have a meeting prior to Veda coming to do their public meeting?
In other words, that's what the public meeting is to get the input from the public where you want the sidewalks.
They want us to give them input on putting it where they show it in their drawing.
No, they want input as to where the townspeople feel they want the sidewalks.
Okay, and at that meeting, would we also have available for the public the potential cost for consider?
Absolutely.
Consider?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Any other discussion?
I guess I would just add on the issue with safety, my understanding is that the accidents that have happened to pedestrian Route 7 have been crossing Route 7, and it's my belief that a sidewalk isn't going to improve that at all in terms of crossing the street, unless we get crosswalks and that sort of thing.
Well, that would be the expectation. I would think that you would have crosswalks and signals, and that's all part of it.
I don't believe it is.
Tammy, could you?
Yes, in addition, we talk about the project in general as being sidewalks along Route 7. There are several pedestrian upgrades that have also been incorporated into the current location and design based on today's both ADA and safety standards. So regardless of the locations of the sidewalks, those crossings and upgrades, which may include lighting, may include other crossing varieties. As you know, there's some that are striped, others that are unstriped. There's a button for the traffic lights to stop those. There's a variety of different levels of crosswalk safety based on the road and the usage of the road, as I understand it. But those will always be incorporated into a sidewalk project along Route 7, regardless of the location that is ultimately chosen.
Thank you for clarifying.
Any other discussion?
Yes, Pete, it's Michael Gold. One thing, it only costs us $1,200 for the people to come in front of us, for the town to be able to hear what
Correct.
they need to hear.
Correct.
I'm for that.
Well, what we're going to vote on, Michael, is to give the mayor the opportunity to go ahead and execute the agreement, which will then put it into motion.
Yep, I think that's great right there.
Okay, but once we put it into motion, Tammy, then our obligation is?
Your obligation is only as much as what the mayor authorizes to Beta in a notice to proceed to conduct.
Which?
It's welfare. I'm all in favor of that too.
Okay.
Okay. And do you need to read the resolution?
Yes. Okay, any more discussion, anybody?
Tammy, it's Doug Skelly. What's the time frame that we have to do this in? Was it extended?
At this point, no. The time frame for construction has not been extended. I would imagine with the current environment here in Connecticut and throughout the Northeast that's a high likelihood.
Yeah.
However, this is a federal program, and the ultimate goal under this program from the initial application was for construction by, I believe, June of 2022.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part.
Completion of construction by June of 2022 was the ultimate goal for this project, but again, we haven't seen anything move in terms of what we're currently facing with the pandemic, and they're federal dollars, so it's possible that the requirements may shift and give us additional time.
Okay, I just want to let you know, Tom Esposito's been trying to call back in and it's not working for him, so I'm going to read what he just texted me. Someone please tell them I am in support.
Thank
There
you.
you go. Okay, everybody ready to hear the resolution?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so resolve that Pete Bass, as mayor of the town of New Milford, is authorized and directed to execute the agreement between the town of New Milford and Beta Group, Inc. for consulting engineering services for the design of the Route 7 pedestrian improvement project, state project number 95-256, federal project number PEDS, PEDS 219. Be it further resolved that Mayor Pete Bass may administer and deliver any and all documents on behalf of the town of New Milford as they pertain to the related grant and agreement, and perform all acts and duties which he deems to be necessary or appropriate to carry out the terms of such documents.
Second. Doug Skelly.
Any
It
discussion?
was already seconded by Walter. The motion was seconded by Walter.
Sorry, go ahead.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions?
Tom, if you can't do it, but Tom's texting, he's a yes.
Okay. Can you please note the unanimous? Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy.
Item number 9, motion to request it's from the Board of Education. Would like to approve the mandated work on the elevator at Sarah Noble Intermediate School in the amount of $49,000. That money be taken from the capital reserve, and to approve the Sarah Noble Intermediate School rooftop air conditioning unit in the amount of $66,000. Money to be taken from the capital reserve.
And
That's Chris.
Okay. And just for edification, I did speak to Angie this evening, and I asked her would there be people available as the schools are shut down. So she wanted to let us know a couple things why they're requesting it right now. Concerning the air conditioner, the unit pricing is only good until April 1st, and then the pricing goes up. And then the elevator is on an 8-week lead time, so they have to get that started as well. So that's why the request from them is to do it at this particular meeting.
Makes sense.
Quick question, and Greg, I'm not sure you can answer this. What does that leave the capital reserve for the school board at?
Greg has left, but I can give you an approximation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. We'd be looking at around 430,000.
Okay, thank you.
After taking the 49 and the 66, you're
Yes.
left with 430.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit low, but
Yeah.
these projects do need to get completed.
And I'll ask Anthony for the exact amount, and I'll give it to, if you guys
No,
approve this.
ballpark is fine.
Okay.
Ballpark is fine. I just hope nothing else happens, that's all.
Any other discussion?
I just want to let you know that Thomas Zito still is not able to be heard on the call, but he just texted to say that he says yes on this when we get ready to vote.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Can you please note unanimous?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
One point before I'd like to say one thing before we adjourn. I would like to thank, the mayor is good at thanking everybody, and I'd like to thank him for his leadership during this time. Your communications with the community.
Chris kills it every single time. Maybe you should stop talking.
They didn't vote to adjourn.
No, we're still here.
Gotta get them back on.
Hello? Hello?
It's gonna be time.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, anybody here?
I can hear you, Tom.
That's not yet.
I think you're the only one.
I may be the only one, but I gotta tell you, Mayor, I want to thank you for the unbelievable job you're doing leading the town during this time of crisis. It is greatly appreciated. As panicked as people are, I see a greater sense of calm across the community from all the communication that you and the rest of the people in the town town government are passing out so that people feel comfortable and get the updated information. You do it.
I'll be back.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Dave. Okay. Dave's on my cell phone, so.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I'll just say real quick, Doug Skelly, this solidifies for me that we definitely have these meetings in person. This is strenuous to say the least to go back.
So we're working on with our IT. We're working on a better way to do this. This is we did it as quickly as we possibly could.
Yeah.
Because we want to adhere to the less than 10 people, 6 feet apart. So obviously, if we had a full council plus people, we would be violating the 10-person thing. So that's why.
No, I understand that. Man. In the future, we'll just over. I know there
What
was.
about using Zoom?
We're looking. Yeah, we're actually exploring that and the different other webinars as well.
Let's adjourn.
Okay.
Stuff here.
Chris, is Chris back on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Sorry, I don't know where I got caught before.
Well, I got dropped out again, and I got dropped, so.
All right, maybe we should adjourn before we.
You got it, Mary Jane.
Yes, please. Well, I just want to, Pete, thank you for your leadership through this time. You've been doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all the town council and all of our employees for all their hard work. We all do this to get through this together, that's for sure.
So Walter made the motion, did anybody second it?
I'll second it.
Second, Chris.
Mary Jane got it, okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, bye.
Well, so